Hello, my name's Paula Clifford and I've worked at Christian Aid for the past 12 years. Before that, I had a career as a university teacher, and at Christian Aid I've been involved with communications, and now my current job is Head of Theology. My job at Christian Aid is to formulate the theology that underlies different aspects of our work as we work to eradicate poverty. And of course, another aspect is to bring out just how important it is for us to show that we take theology seriously and of course its basis in our Christian faith. Now, the challenge of theology in this context is that we're dealing with very contemporary issues, things like HIV and AIDS, climate change, tax justice, all things that obviously were quite unknown to classical theologians. And so I spend a lot of my time listening to people, consulting people like other theologians, academics, but also church leaders, our partners, even our supporters, and last but not least, the people in poor communities who we exist to support. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was in Nairobi in Kenya, and I was taken to visit the Kibera slum, which is one of the big slums on the outskirts of the city. And at the time, I was working on climate change, and I was beginning to formulate a relational theology that looked at the flawed relationships between the rich North and the global South, and the broken relationships between human beings and the environment. But when I went to Kibera, I learnt about far more than just climate change. To start with, my guide was a young Italian priest. He'd originally come to Kibera to write his thesis, but once his thesis was done, he stayed on in the slum. He built his own shack, he lived among the slum dwellers, and he had a ministry to them, both as a Catholic priest, but also he set up a youth club, and he was an important advocate for the slum dwellers with the Nairobi City Council. And then there were the slum dwellers themselves. I quickly realised that many of them tried to earn a living by scavenging on one of the city rubbish dumps that was immediately opposite the slum. But in order to get to that dump, people had to walk through the Nairobi River, which at that point was heavily polluted with chemicals from the city's industries. And the result, the priest told me, was when it comes to the Maundy Thursday service with its traditional ceremony of washing people's feet, we see, said the priest, that these people have holes in their feet. And this became to me a very potent symbol, a symbol of suffering, the suffering imposed by the lifestyles of the rich on poor communities in the South. And of course it was reminiscent of the wounds of Jesus on the cross. I'm still pondering the theological implications of all that. But for me, this is one of the things that inspires me in the work that I do, to show Christian love in action, which after all is what Christian Aid is all about.